This is the Reebok Floatride 3 Adventure. But what does that mean? Is this a trail shoe or just trail inspired? It's time to lace up these shoes and take them for a run. 6.74 miles, 8 minutes 34 seconds per mile, 141 beats per minute today on a snowy day in late March in Chicago. A perfect way to test out the Reebok Floatride Energy 3 Adventure. Now, before I give you my thoughts on this shoe and just exactly what this is, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Reebok sent to me for the purpose of review. However, they're not paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and they're not going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about this Reebok Floatride Energy 3.0 Adventure. It's quite a mouthful of a name. So what do we have here? Essentially what we have, I think, is like a trail inspired shoe. And I'll talk about how that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're looking for like a Reebok trail shoe, I'm not sure that this is it. I think where this fits in is kind of similar to how a lot of other brands will have kind of a run shield or a shield version of their shoes. Something that's a little bit, not necessarily a trail version, not necessarily a winter version, but more of a weatherized version. Something that you can get a little bit wet, a little bit more into the elements than the normal road version. And I think the main clues to that for me are that the midsole and the outsole, I think, are exactly the same as what you'd find in the regular version, the Floatride Energy 3.0. So what we have is a 26 millimeter stack height in the heel with a 9 millimeter drop, giving us 17 millimeters of foam in the forefoot. And in terms of how the shoes feel to me, the ride of each of these shoes feels identical to me as well. We have this foam here that kind of looks like Boost and kind of like squeezes in hand like Boost. And in previous editions of this shoe has behaved a lot like Boost as well. But I feel like with the 3.0, this foam has changed characters just a little bit, just gotten a touch firmer. And so what that results in is a running experience that feels a little bit denser than I would think if this were, say, like an Adidas shoe with Boost in the midsole. I also do think that this is a little bit lighter than Boost would be. Like this shoe comes in at a weight that I measured at 9.4 ounces, which was 0.2 ounces heavier than the 9.2 that I measured for the standard edition. So what is going on with that 0.2 ounces of weight? So we have different materials for the upper. We have 30% recycled materials going into the upper in this shoe. That's kind of one of the main stories. Also, we have a couple of different kind of like trail-ish features. So we've got an extra amount of TPU or what feels like TPU in the forefoot here, giving it a little bit more of a toe cap. And it seems like there's more like TPU kind of tape that's covering all the seams. We've got a little bit of TPO also on the heel cup here as well. As far as the upper material goes, I think they've also switched out the material. It's still very breathable, just like the regular version was. But what we have here is a single layer stretchy ripstop type of material, which I think is going to do a great job of letting lots of water, if you do get this wet, like say, for example, if you're stomping through puddles or going through a creek crossing, a lot of that water is going to be able to flow out really quickly. Or if it's a hot summer day, you'll get a lot of ventilation coming through the toe box and towards the back of the shoe. We've got some additional changes in terms of what's going on with the eyelets. It seems like these are also taped down with something that's a little bit more weatherized, and the laces are different too. We've got more of like this cord type of lace, which is a little bit on the stretchy side, which I feel like didn't do as much in terms of function for me, but I think it all kind of like adds to that trail or outdoorsy aesthetic. The tongue is substantially different here on the Floatride 3 Adventure from the regular version, and I think that this tongue is a huge improvement and something that I hope that Reebok will use a little bit more in the future. It's a lot flatter as it sits on top of the foot, and I feel like it gets out of the way a lot better than the tongue did on the regular version, but I love the look of it and that pop of color that it injects across the top of the foot. There's even 2 pull tabs on this shoe as they've added one to the back here. So the one thing that I do think that is notable of a difference in terms of what's going on these shoes is that the top of the heel cup here is just a little bit different than it is on the regular Floatride version. And I think that, well, the Floatride 3 has a kind of a point in terms of its Achilles flare, and I feel like it's a little bit more rounded of an edge here in the Floatride 3 Adventure. I'm not sure if that's a production variant or if they've actually gone and changed the design and tweaked it a little bit for this Adventure variant of the Floatride 3. But in either event, what this all did when it put together, especially with the Ortholite sock liner that's in this shoe, is that it made for a very comfortable step-in feel, and I really enjoyed wearing this shoe casually. I took the kids to the arcade today and was chasing them around all afternoon, and having this shoe on was extremely comfortable, and I just feel like the look, they really nailed the look. I think the aesthetics are amazing on this shoe, while still also maintaining the run capability of the Floatride Energy 3. So I think what we have here is at best like a weatherized version of Floatride Energy 3. I think something that in some inclement weather might be a little bit better to run in than the regular version. But I think really what we have is just kind of like a license for Reebok to get a little bit more kind of crazy with the design and kind of do some stuff that they might not otherwise do when they're trying to appeal to a much larger audience with the aggressive pricing of the Floatride 3. The Floatride 3 comes in at $100 and this shoe comes in at $110. So I think in terms of what they're delivering from an overall usability perspective, you can use this casually for sure. I think it looks great. You can use it as a daily trainer. I think it's a great all-arounder. And I think that you'll be able to take it to the gym as well. And I think that the shoe is going to both perform well and look good while you're doing it. So I feel like as much as I enjoy the aesthetic of the regular Floatride version 3, I like the Floatride 3 Adventure even more. I think that has a surprising amount of usability, even though it doesn't really fit into any of the kind of standard genres we might look for when we're trying to figure out what a shoe is. It's just a shoe that can kind of do it all. So those are my thoughts on the Reebok Floatride 3 Adventure. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube. I do it over on my Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to see you guys there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?